Good morning, everybody. This is Steve with Real Progressives. Have you noticed a sudden, grouping of people flying out into the streets? Have you noticed tons of people suddenly paying attention to an election that they thought was in the bag? Have you noticed that there are many people out there who are suddenly saying, this guy's not my president? Have you noticed that they're all out there focused on Donald Trump? They're not focused on rigged elections. They're not focused on any of the things that we had. There's not a real Black Lives Matter movement here. When Black Lives Matter were busy interrupting Hillary Clinton, they were asleep. They were in the process of defending Hillary Clinton, telling people, mind your manners. Do you remember the same people that were telling Bernie that his stuff was pie in the sky and telling us to shut up, Bernie didn't get enough votes? You remember that? Now all of a sudden they're out in the streets protesting because Hillary didn't have enough votes. She didn't win enough states. And when this is all said and done, Donald Trump will probably have over 300 electoral votes, electoral college votes. This is going to be a landslide when it's all counted up. And where were they when there was an opportunity? Where were they when there was an opportunity to prevent this? Where were they when there was an opportunity to actually fight for the issues instead of fighting about a single person? Donald Trump is a symptom, yet again, of a larger problem. Donald Trump in and of himself is not the problem. Donald Trump came about as a direct result of neoliberalism. I don't know if anybody realized this or not, but for the last 16 years, the United States has been bombing freedom all over the world. They've been saving the world one bomb at a time. And in the last 8 years, the anti-war left has fallen asleep. They've gone to sleep at the wheel. Now all of a sudden, Donald Trump is elected, and look, they remembered how to take to the streets. Wonder what happened. I wonder if it's because they think that Republican bombs kill more than Democrat bombs kill. All I can say is this: I support protests, I support actions, I support all manner of involvement in democracy. But I am, as someone who thinks through the issues, I am absolutely disgusted with the knee-jerk responses, the not well thought out behaviors, the impulsive nonsense that doesn't really serve anything. We have got real serious issues ahead of us. And once again, we're playing partisanship here instead of focusing on them. If the Democrats really, really wanted a movement, they had one. They had one. And so there's something called Duverger's Law. Duverger's Law talks about the impossibility of a third party penetrating into a duopoly like the United States. It talks about the psychological reasons that things like that don't happen. And because people genuinely feel akin to the right-left paradigm. So what you have here now is largely a partisan, you're not my president kind of protest. And partisanship is what got us here to begin with. Where were these people when the poor white people were struggling? Where were these people when the African Americans were getting gunned down? Where were they when Hillary said the crime bill was a well thought out bill? Where were they when Hillary said welfare reform is awesome? Where were they when Hillary fought against bankruptcy protections for regular America? Where were they when we were asking for Hillary's Wall Street transcripts? Where were they when Bernie Sanders got robbed of the primary? Where were they when we had a chance to fix the root of the problem versus the symptoms? Where were they? Folks, I am not a pop culture guy. I am not a pop culture guy. I am brutally nonconformist, and I will not go along to get along. The fact of the matter is that our problems are far deeper than Donald Trump. And the fixes are going to be far more than just Donald Trump. You want to be taken seriously? Do serious things. You want to be thought of as worthy of consideration? Do things that are esteemable. Right now, we've got a situation where millions of people are going to be screwed entirely. They're going to be completely put out into very, very, very rough times. And all of it was 1000% preventable. It was all preventable. We were out there as the left fighting for what the Democratic Party had always said was their goals. And the Democratic Party systematically destroyed the movement, tore it down to the ground, and now, like a vampire, is going to suckle the life out of another left-wing movement, co-opt it, and try to roll it back into the party. I, for one, am going to stand my ground. Am I going to support Democrats? When they're right, I'll support them. Am I going to support them all the time? Absolutely not. I will absolutely decimate a Democrat who actually sidles up with the establishment. There will be no more do-overs. This was it for me. And watching these spontaneous protests, what are you protesting? Are you protesting election fraud? Are you protesting superdelegates? Are you protesting bigotry? Well, where were you throughout this whole time? Where were you when Bernie Sanders walked down the aisles of Baltimore in the poorest sections of town, and you were busy saying, I didn't know Bernie Sanders during the civil rights movement. I never saw him. I didn't know Bernie when he was fighting for health care, single payer. But yet we have pictures of you sitting there with him, right? Where were all these people who said that Bernie Sanders was not a real Democrat? Where were all these people who were setting the stage for Donald Trump to come in and harm marginalized, vulnerable Americans? Where were they when we were out there en masse fighting? Where were they? Where were they? Most qualified, Madam President, where were they? The blood of this is on their hands. And who are they out there protesting? Are they protesting against themselves? Are they protesting against the thievery that the Clintons did here? Are they protesting against Debbie What's-Her-Name Schultz for what she did here? Are they protesting against Donna Brazile for what she did here? No. They're out there taking easy, low-hanging fruit, lowbrow cheap shots at the doofus with small hands and a bad comb-over. That's what they're doing. That's not protest. That's not real revolution. That's nothing. That's a giant nothing burger. The real issues come down to governing, folks. They come down to fighting the system as it stands. And they're not prepared to do that. Or are they? Did they suddenly grow a spine? Did they suddenly learn about the issues? Did they suddenly care about issues? Did they suddenly care about real economics? Or are they just opportunists yet again, living like a vampire on the corpse of the Bernie Sanders movement that they so desperately fought to destroy? We have a sacred responsibility to not give in to knee-jerk, lowbrow, moronic behavior. We have a sacred responsibility to this movement to be thinkers and to use our heads to make sure that we capitalize and mobilize appropriately and properly and with purpose. Just doing things to do things is like my children. I love my kids, but I'm not following them. we have to get to a point where we realize, what is it that we're fighting for? What are you fighting for? Are you fighting for the climate? If so, well, there's something to stand up for. Are you fighting against war? Prove it. Or are you just fighting against the guy who stole the election by getting the most votes from Hillary Clinton, the most qualified Madam President of all time? What are you actually standing for? You built this Democratic Party. You built this. Don't act like you've got a right to protest. You did nothing but destroy the movement that could have stopped this from happening. Now we got to clean up your mess, don't we? And I'm okay with that, because I knew all along. Go back through all my videos, go back through everything I've posted. I told you all that the only thing that would get the milquetoast centrist sycophants out of their couch was Donald Trump or Jill Stein or Bernie Sanders. Well, guess what? They opted for the nuclear version of this. They opted for Donald Trump by force-feeding Hillary Clinton on us. But I told you, it'd get them out of their seats. That's the only thing that will, because Obama has been blowing the world up. He's been bombing everywhere for the last 8 years without any regard, drone strikes, you name it. And where were they? How many lives mattered when they were busy blowing Yemenis up, when they were busy blowing Syrians up, when they were busy blowing Iraqis up, when they were busy helping overthrow a democratically elected government in Honduras through Hillary Clinton? Where were they? Where were they when the Clintons pillaged Haiti? Where were they? Folks, where were they? Where were they? Too busy sizing up themselves in the mirror saying, Madam President, Madam President. Oh, Madam President. That is a cancer. That is a cancer to progress. And now what do you have? Now you have Donald Trump, who has stacked the deck on Social Security with people that want to privatize it, just like Hillary did, with a bunch of war hawks. You name it, all the DC insiders are now stacking the deck again. You could have changed this. You could have joined arms with us. Instead, you said Bernie wasn't a real Democrat. Jill who? What has Jill ever done? You know what I'm talking about. You know the same people I'm talking about. You built this. Strap it on, own it. Now, what are we going to do? You want to organize. Well, what do you want to organize about? You just want to take to the streets? Folks, just because somebody has a lot of time on their hands, just because somebody is running around, doesn't make them a good leader. Available time does not equal good leadership. Available time does not equal intellectual knowledge. It doesn't equal integrity. It doesn't in any way, shape, or form indicate someone that is necessarily worthy to be followed. Be careful where you put your allegiance. Be careful where you walk to. Be careful what you involve yourself in. That's what's happened repeatedly, time and again. The blue blinders of Democratic sycophant lifestyle is ridiculous. And then, I'm telling you folks, just because somebody is loose and proud and is always available does not make them a good leader. Be very, very careful. Be very, very careful. Economics matters, so what's going to happen? How many people do you think have paid attention to the economic message that we've put out there? How many people do you think are going to understand how to fight Donald Trump when their team tries to cut spending? How many people do you know, when he issues out a infrastructure bill, will actually try to support pushing an infrastructure bill versus sit there and just rail against Donald Trump? How many of you know the art of war and work with your opponent and go against your opponent when the time is right? How many of you actually understand logic and use logic? These protests that are going on right now, ask yourself, what are they fighting for? Not my president, not a worthy goal. That time was back in July at the DNC. You had a choice between a lying, evil warmonger and a bloviating, egotistical, xenophobic bigot. The people chose bloviating over a murderer. That's horrible, isn't it? Isn't that a terrible set of choices? I selected Jill Stein. I selected Bernie Sanders. I lost lots of sleep and time with my family. These people were busy saying, Madam President. Oh, Madam President. Doesn't it sound delicious? Well, it's like the Diet Coke of evil, the Diet Coke of revolutionary. 1 calorie, not much revolution. I'm in it for the long haul, people. I hope you are too. Real Progressives is building something for the long haul. We're not knee-jerking it. We're going to be building a volunteer database so that we can actually begin to build out our network. And it's going to be a thoughtful network. It's not going to be a knee-jerk network, folks. It's going to be one that actually makes progress, not sits there and just knee-jerks all over the place. It's going to be one that makes change, not just rattles sabers. If you want to be a part of that, stick with Real Progressives. We're not here for the short term. We're not here for the knee jerks. We're not here for the low brow. We're here to actually impact what really matters. Economics, corporate control over our government, equality, democracy, and actually building coalitions beyond our echo chamber. If you want to see real progress, stay with Real Progressives. Please support us on our Patreon link. Please support us on our YouTube channel. Please support us on Twitter. All the links will be provided. And please, for goodness sakes, pay attention to economics. Know what it is you're fighting for. That way we can make real change. Have a great day.